Tonight on Reporting Scotland. Guilty of murder, Ronnie Coulter, convicted of stabbing to death an Indian waiter in Overton near Motherwell. Surjit Singh Chokar was just 32 when he was killed in a row over a benefit cheque. His family have waited nearly 18 years for today's verdict.
It's been very hard for us, especially my mom and dad. This is a third trial. My dad died waiting for this trial date to come. Sadly, he couldn't make it.
We'll be looking at why it took so long, also in the programme. Ruth Davidson tells the Tory party conference the First Minister needs to stop picking fights with Westminster. Hibs prepare for their Champions League match against Bayern Munich tonight. And the stars are out in St Andrews as Ronan Keating tees off the Dunhill Links. Good evening. It's taken 18 years and 3 trials, but today a man was finally convicted of the murder of Indian waiter Surjit Singh Chokar. The case resulted in wide-ranging changes to the police and prosecution services after mistakes were made by the Crown Office and there was found to be institutional racism within the police, particularly in how they dealt with Mr Chokar's family. Well, in a moment we'll look at why the conviction took so long to secure. But first, Andrew Black reports on the day's events.
After an 18-year fight, the family of Surjit Singh Chokar said justice had finally been done.
Surjit was a loving son, father and brother who was lucky to have 2 stubborn parents who refused to be silenced as they fought for justice as a right and not a privilege. Surjit's late father Darshan always said that until his very last breath that he would have a hope for justice. Whilst the dead cannot cry out for justice, it is the duty of the living to do so for them.
And that day has finally come after Ronnie Coulter was convicted of murder. Mr Chokar was 32 when he died. He was working at this Indian restaurant while also claiming an employment benefit. He had a flat here in Gauk Thrapple, Wishaw. Ronnie Coulter, seen here, also lived in the same building, as did his nephew, Andrew Coulter. The trial heard that on the morning of the 4th of November 1998, Andrew Coulter, jobless and looking for cash to buy alcohol, broke into Mr Chokar's flat and stole a giro cheque for £100 and 70 pence. After getting his uncle Ronnie to forge Mr Chokar's signature, he cashed it at a local post office. Mr Chokar's partner, Elizabeth Bryce, found out what happened and threatened to call the police. It was a threat which ended in murder. Most of the time, Mr Chokar lived here in Garrion Street, Overtown, with Elizabeth Bryce. On the night of the 4th of November, Ronnie and Andrew Coulter and a third man, David Montgomery, travelled here to meet Mr Chokar coming home from work. There was a confrontation in the street. It ended with Ronnie Coulter stabbing Mr Chokar to death. Ronnie Coulter was tried and acquitted of murder in 1999. The following year, Andrew Coulter and David Montgomery were also found not guilty of the crime. There was criticism of how the case was handled. One report found institutional racism within the police. Today, officers said the lessons learned from the original case have vastly improved the way things are done.
The thing for us to do is to make sure these things never happen again and we continue to work the way we do just now. In terms of this type of investigation, it's only the second double jeopardy. So these are pretty much models for the way we carry out not just the investigation, but also how we deal with the family and the people involved round about that investigation as well.
Ronnie Coulter once boasted of getting away with the perfect murder. Now he faces a life term when he's sentenced later this month. Andrew Black, Reporting Scotland.
Ronnie Coulter's retrial was only the second time that double jeopardy rules have been used to try someone previously acquitted of a crime. Our Home Affairs correspondent Riva Alderson now reports on the long journey to convict Ronnie Coulter and the toll it's taken on the family of Surjit Singh Chokar.
It's been very hard for us, especially my mom and dad. This is a third trial. My dad died waiting for this trial date to come. Sadly, he couldn't make it, and he died last year in October, almost a year before the trial.
Just over 4 months after his death, Ronnie Coulter was acquitted of Mr Chokhar's murder. He'd blamed his nephew Andrew Coulter and David Montgomery. The trial judge, Lord McCluskey, a former prosecutor, attacked the Crown for not putting all three into the dock. He said, "I can't begin to understand how it happened, and I shall be taking steps to see if I can discover what the reason was for the course that was taken." The Lord Advocate insisted it had been right to prosecute only Ronnie Coulter, but legal experts say it was a difficult decision.
One of the reasons it was a failure is that the police were criticised at the time for not investigating sufficiently thoroughly or rigorously. And so what we're seeing this time is that with the passage of time, there has been further police investigation, new witnesses have come forward, and that's allowed the conviction to be secured in this case.
2 years after the murder, the other men, Andrew Coulter and David Montgomery, were also acquitted of murder, having faced a separate trial. In their turn, they'd blamed Ronnie Coulter. In 2001, a review of prosecution decisions in the case by a senior Northern Ireland judge, Sir Anthony Campbell, said all three men should have been indicted together. The then Lord Advocate told MSPs the Crown Office had failed the Chokhar family.
The family have a genuine sense of grievance that justice has not been done. Of course, no prosecution service can ever guarantee a conviction, and as a society we must never expect results in individual cases. Nevertheless, the fact is that we did not give ourselves the best shot at the prosecution. To that extent, the family's grievance that justice was not done by the prosecution is well founded.
But it was another 14 years before Ronnie Coulter was indicted again under new double jeopardy laws. Today, Ronnie Coulter was finally convicted, despite having once more blamed his nephew and David Montgomery for the killing. But there's no celebration for the Chokhar family.
It's not going to be a happy occasion for us. All we want is justice done for my brother and for my family. That's all we are looking for. Person who murdered my brother, we would like to see him behind the bars for the punishment he has done for his crime. That's all we want. There's no celebration, no happiness for us because we have lost a member of the family. All we are looking for is justice.
Rival Alderson, reporting Scotland.
The Scottish Conservative leader Ruth Davidson has warned the SNP government not to pick fights with Westminster. She was speaking at her party's UK conference immediately before the Prime Minister, Theresa May. Our political correspondent Nick Eardley was there.
She's something of a superstar at Tory conference. Ruth Davidson used her keynote speech to say government must do more for ordinary people. She's been basking in the Scottish Conservatives' recent electoral success, and she told delegates what she'd be urging Nicola Sturgeon to do.
Instead of picking endless fights with Westminster about whatever grievance you've concocted, pick a fight with poor literacy and numeracy standards in Scotland's schools. Pick a fight with a health gap. You are the government of Scotland, and you were elected to improve the lives of people of our country.
And a message on independence.
You see Nicola Sturgeon on the television most weeks telling you that Scotland is up in arms, again, threatening the breakup of Britain, asserting that independence is closer now than ever before, declaring that separation is somehow inevitable. Well, today, speaking to people from across the UK, I want to make this clear. Don't believe a word of it.
Ruth Davidson has again been given one of the most prominent slots at Conservative Conference. And although Brexit has been the key theme, there's been plenty talk too of support for the Union in opposition to another independence vote.
A message that continued as Theresa May set out her vision for government.
I will always fight to preserve our proud historic union and will never let divisive nationalists drive us apart.
Nicola Sturgeon thinks Mrs May's vision for Brexit Britain is deeply ugly. She's branded immigration proposals hugely worrying. The Prime Minister insisted change would come, but she promised it would work for all.
So my vision is for Britain to be a great meritocracy. It's what I've always believed in, the cause that everything I've ever done in politics has been designed to serve. Because a country based on merit, not privilege, is a country that's fair.
That's the message they hope will emerge from this conference. It's one the Conservatives think people want to hear. Nick Eardley reporting Scotland in Birmingham.
Holyrood has taken the first steps towards increasing the top 4 bands of the council tax. The money raised will be invested in schools. Our political editor Brian Taylor joins me now. Brian, this was endorsed by Holyrood's local government committee, but not without contention.
Not without contention, as you say, Jackie. The Greens, for example, Andy Whiteman, wanted a full-scale revaluation of property, wanted a more radical change to local authority finance systems. The Conservatives were unhappy that money raised locally won't stay with local authorities. It'll be redistributed. Indeed, it'll go directly to schools under this programme. Some £100 million a year raised from the sum. But the Finance Secretary, Derek Mackay, well, he took a cautious approach. He said it was right. He said it was proportionate. He said it was balanced. In practice, what this will mean, what's happened today is they've changed the rules so that from April next year there will be, by this decision alone, a higher imposition on the top 4 bands. So if you're in band E, for example, just from this decision, your council tax will be £105 more per year. If you're in the top band, band H, it'll be £517. But for the vast bulk of people in bands A to D, they won't see from this any particular change. You know, Derek Mackay is many things, but one thing he appears to be is a student of history. He knows that substantial overhauls of local government finance tend not to end well.
Thank you very much, Brian. Scots scientist Sir Fraser Stoddart is among 3 recipients of this year's Nobel Prize for Chemistry. It's been awarded for his work developing molecular machines. The machines are 1,000 times thinner than a strand of hair. Sir Fraser was brought up in Midlothian and educated at Edinburgh University, where he also endows a prize for PhD students.
He was back here in April, and we had a really very enjoyable ceremony, and he always enjoys coming back. And I think one of the things that came across from him was just how what a nice individual he is. He's a very kind man, and he was inspiring. He gave a presentation to all of our postgraduate students and researchers, and they were inspired.
The Scottish Government has set out 7 priorities for Police Scotland. They include resilience, responsiveness and adaptability. But what does this mean in practice? And will the aims cut crime and keep our communities safe at a time of financial efficiencies? Maura Kiriba has this report.
It's really buckled.
Yeah. Community support in West Lothian, where more local policing is welcomed.
I think in previous years we have seen a little bit of a shift away from community policing, and it's nice to see that coming back, because I think that's about prevention. You know, if we've got good quality officers on the ground who know the people here, know the community and people know them, they build up trust and they build up a rapport that just strengthens the relationship, and they can nip things in the bud. They know who's who, people know who they are, and it gives them that opportunity.
The Justice Minister met police leaders to unveil 7 new strategic priorities, inclusion, prevention and collaboration among them. In practice, that means the force is to tackle developing threats like cybercrime, as well as community policing.
Yes. What the purpose of these new priorities is to make sure we get that balance right, reinforcing the localism of policing, while at the same time making sure the police are able to adapt and to respond to those new and emerging threats such as cybercrime, which can be in someone's front room.
But new priorities come with no new funding, and there's already a period of cuts and efficiencies.
We need to make the most of the money that we've got. We need to spend it wisely. I'm convinced we can do more with what we've got. Ultimately, we will have to make choices, and that's the same in any part of the public sector. But what we want to do that is with people rather than to them, and people understand and agree with the decisions we're making.
7 priorities, 7 promises. On the ground, volunteers here hope that means the authorities are listening and responding to local needs. Maura Kiriba reporting Scotland, West Lothian.
You're watching BBC Reporting Scotland. It's 18 minutes to 7. A reminder of tonight's top story. Ronnie Coulter has been convicted of the 1988 murder of waiter Surjit Singh Chokar after being tried for a second time following changes to Scotland's double jeopardy laws. And still to come, Hibs prepare for their Champions League match against Bayern Munich tonight. Construction work has begun on the new fleet of nuclear submarines, which will carry the controversial Trident missile system. 4 of the submarines are being built in Cumbria, but when they enter service, they'll operate from Faslane Naval Base on the Clyde. Well, our business correspondent David Henderson is with me now, and this is part of a big investment for the Clyde, David.
Yes, it is, Jackie. The Royal Navy's next generation of nuclear submarines is now being built. They're designed to carry Trident missiles. That's the UK's nuclear weapons system. And yes, they'll sail from the Royal Navy base on the Clyde. And this is a long-term programme of work. The last of these subs will not be built until the 2040s, and they're designed to remain operational until around 50 years from now. Some of the technology on board will be built by companies here in Scotland, but the UK government says that what's most important is that this is part of a wider plan involving investment of £500 million on the Clyde.
We're investing in Faslane. All our submarines are going to be based in Faslane, not just these successor submarines, but the Astute-class submarines, of which 3 have already been built, and eventually the Trafalgar-class submarines that are moving up from Portsmouth. So Faslane will become the base for all Britain's submarines in future, and that is a vote of confidence in that base.
David, that announcement was made at the Conservative Party conference, and the announcement itself is highly political.
Well, indeed, it's no coincidence this is happening today. There's always a lot of politics mixed up in these big announcements by the Ministry of Defence. Today is no exception. You mentioned there, this is hot on the heels of the Conservative Party conference. It's just before the SNP conference. It stirs up a big political row. We know that the SNP want to scrap the Trident nuclear weapons system. They say it's wrong militarily. They say it's immoral. They say it's ridiculously expensive. The Tories say that they're wrong and that Trident boosts our defence and boosts our national security. And they stress, of course, that once built, they'll be based on the Clyde. It means that when Scottish voters think about issues around Scottish independence, that those nuclear submarines, the jobs that go with them, and the sheer cost will all be part of the political debate, perhaps for decades to come.
David, thank you. Police have released CCTV footage of missing Clydebank teenager Scott Diver. The 16-year-old has been missing for almost 3 weeks, and police and his family are increasingly worried. These are images of Scott walking through Dalmuir Park in Clydebank just before 3 o'clock on the afternoon of the 17th of September. This is the last confirmed sighting, and police hope anyone who remembers seeing him will contact them. An oil supply ship has been detained for a second time at Aberdeen Harbour for non-payment of seafarers' wages. The Malavia 7 was detained in June under merchant shipping regulations, but later released. The Maritime and Coast Guard Agency has confirmed that it's been detained again and will remain in harbour until the workers are paid. We'll now look at other stories from across the country. A dog owner who admitted ordering her Staffordshire Bull Terrier to attack another woman has been jailed for 3 years. Vicky Lee Galloway from Peterhead set her dog on Stacey Finlay after the two women argued. Part of Miss Finlay's ear was torn off. A man was also attacked. The first 5 projects hoping to benefit from a £315 million city deal for Inverness and the Highlands have been submitted. They include the redevelopment of Inverness Castle into a visitor attraction, a Northern Innovation Hub, and a new University of the Highlands and Islands School of Health, Social Care and Life Sciences. Work to move the rig, which ran aground on Lewis, may have to be suspended if it can't be transferred onto a specialist vehicle by Monday. Preparations are being made to make a further attempt at loading the Transocean Winner, but it's emerged that the heavy lift vessel sent to collect the installation is soon to be sent elsewhere. The programme for this year's Dundee Science Festival, which runs for 2 weeks from the end of the month, has been unveiled. Themes will include medicine and health, animals and the environment.
We try to work along with our local community to create events that are tailored to suit their needs and their interests. We make the events accessible, so a lot of the events out in community centres are free of charge, and we pick themes that are important to Dundee in raising the profile of the work that happens here.
Rangers midfielder Joey Barton has been charged with breaking rules relating to gambling on football matches. The 34-year-old is accused by the Scottish Football Association of placing 44 bets between the 1st of July and the 15th of September this year. The player has a week to respond to the charge. SFA rules ban players, coaches and club officials from betting on football anywhere in the world. European Champions League football comes to Edinburgh for the first time this evening. Hibernian ladies take on the Germans of Bayern Munich at Easter Road. With Glasgow City playing in Sweden tomorrow, it's the first time 2 Scottish sides have featured in the competition. So is it a sign of progress in the women's game? Here's our senior football reporter, Chris McLaughlin.
Hibernian ladies, part-time players preparing like professionals, preparing for the start of their Champions League dream. And in the stadium usually reserved for the club's men, tonight the women do battle with the European elite.
They're going to get the chance to play against full-time professionals, some of the best players in the world, Olympic champions, world champions, European champions. So from that point of view, it's going to be great for them to go and get the experience of playing at that level, to see where they are in relation to it and where we are as a club.
The polished promotional videos tell their own story about the opponents. Women's football in Germany is thriving, successful and professional. Just ask the Scot who made the switch there 4 years ago.
Obviously the Bundesliga in my eyes is one of the strongest leagues in Europe, if not the strongest. I think I've said that to you before, and I think Scottish football has definitely grown. I think you can see that in the fact that the way that our national team is developing and growing, the fact that we've qualified now for the Euros for the first time ever in history.
Evidence of improvement perhaps, but what about growth? According to Scottish women's football, in 2014 there were 68 teams. That has now risen to 126. They say by 2020 they want that to rise further to 431. Total players registered over 10,000.
There's so many countries now where they are playing professional.
But we need to do more to keep our best talent here, according to one coach with experience in England and Scotland.
The figure is around 20 plus that are playing out with Scotland, and in one sense it's fantastic for the national team because those players are playing in a professional environment against the very, very best players. However, domestically that can be problematic for our game because in essence it perhaps dilutes a bit the quality.
A balancing act in the search for success. Chris McLaughlin, reporting Scotland.
Two young Scots golfers make their European debuts tomorrow in the Dunhill Links Championship. But as well as competing with some of the world's best players, they'll also be rubbing shoulders with stars of stage, screen and other sports. More now from David Curry.
The Old Course, St Andrews, one of 3 venues where over the next few days golf meets showbiz, where pop stars like Ronan Keating play alongside sporting legends like Sir Ian Botham and golfers like the US Masters champion Danny Willett. This year there are 2 rookie Scots professionals taking part too. The first is this 20-year-old from Glasgow.
For the last 10 years just been watching it on TV and all the guys and thinking, oh, I want to be there, I want to play against them, and then all of a sudden I'm playing against them and it feels kind of bizarre to be hitting balls beside them on the range.
Also teeing up will be this 23-year-old from East Lothian.
It is a big event to start out your pro career on, and you obviously hope to play well, but the main thing is just to go out and enjoy it and make the most of the experience.
It's fair to say, however, there's a difference in the scale of the ambitions of our 2 rookies.
To be a top 50 player in the world and play in the main tours and PGA tours and European tours, all that stuff, it would just be so cool to me. Like being here today, it's just making me hungrier and ready, really making me want to be a European tour golfer full time. I just think it's so cool.
I've got tour school coming up this year, so hopefully walk out this season with a tour card.
Now, if there are any nerves on the tee from the Dunhill Links new boys, they won't be alone.
I practice and I get ready for this tournament, and then as soon as you stand up and there's an audience, it cripples you. So that's the hardest part. If you can get over the nerves, the game is there, but the nerves kill me.
A decent shot, but Ronan won't be troubling the world's leading pros in years to come, but maybe the 2 Scots rookies will. David Curry, reporting Scotland, St Andrews.
A decent shot, that was a pretty good shot. Now here's Shelley Joffrey with details of Scotland 2016.
Tonight, Theresa May plants her tanks firmly on Labour's lawn. But does anyone really believe the Tories are now the party of the working class? And after an 18-year wait for justice, what lessons can be learned from the case of Surjit Singh Chokar? We'll be talking about all of that and more over on BBC Two at 10:30.
Time for the weather now from Cosser.
Thank you, Jackie. Good evening to you all. Well, it's been the end of another beautiful day for many of us across the country. If we take a look at the satellite image, we started off with some cloud around, but the cloud thinning and breaking to allow much more in the way of sunshine to end the day. And the lion's share of that sunshine across the northwest, where there was not a cloud in the sky for some of us. This beautiful picture sent in from one of our weather watchers in Westeros. And temperatures peaked at around 18 Celsius across Skye and also Alt Bay in the Northwest Highlands. Now, during the evening, it's staying dry and rather breezy too, but cloud will tend to increase as we head through to the evening, with those strong southeasterly winds, especially strong across the Galloway coast and up towards the Western Isles and Northern Isles too. Further inland, a bit lighter, and we'll see more in the way of cloud across the south and the east, and here temperatures 9 to 10 degrees. Across the Northwest Highlands, though, for some sheltered glens, maybe dipping to around 4 or 5 Celsius, where we have those clearer skies. So for tomorrow, a fairly cloudy start, but once again, the cloud will thin and break, and we'll see much more in the way of sunshine developing, especially by the afternoon, and the best of which, once more, across the northwest of the country. The winds will tend to ease a little as well. A good deal of sunshine for Shetland. The winds perhaps still fresh for Orkney and the Banff and Buchan coast, but elsewhere towards the northwest, here in the sunshine, temperatures could reach 16 or 17 degrees once more. Elsewhere, 13, 14 Celsius as our high, maybe 15 degrees for Dumfries and Galloway. Now, all of this fine, settled weather has been courtesy of this area of high pressure, and it is still with us, and it will still be for the end of the week and for the weekend too, keeping these areas of low pressure weather systems at bay in the Atlantic. But the winds do become more of an easterly by Friday, and we may see 1 or 2 showers coming through. So for Friday, the showers will be light, fairly isolated, mainly towards the east, and the best of the sunshine towards the west once more. Temperatures 12 to 13 degrees. And throughout the weekend too, staying fine and settled, a few showers and turning a little cooler. That's your forecast. Jackie.
Thank you, Koza. Now a reminder of tonight's main news. Ronnie Coulter has been convicted of the 1998 murder of waiter Surjit Singh Chokar after being tried for a second time following changes to Scotland's double jeopardy laws. And the Prime Minister has set out her vision for a Conservative Party representing ordinary working class families. Theresa May told the Tory conference she wants Britain to be a country of fairness and opportunity. And that's Reporting Scotland. I'm back at 10:25. From everyone on the team, have a good evening.